Start the broadcast. Okay. So it shows that we're live. Live from studio, my living room.
Thought you were going to say Studio C, just because I saw Studio C on the brain now.
I'm sorry.
I've been in a few sketches, so I'm okay with it.
Well, my kids love Studio C, but then when they did their most recent cast change up, that's when they said that they became less funny.
Yeah, I have to agree. This past season, this current season, season 9 or something, just even actually season 8 didn't seem that funny with the 3 new cast members.
Yeah, I don't know what. I know that Matt's one of the writers, but it just seems like they got these new cast members on, and I just don't think they know how to act.
The majority of the writers are the original cast members, so that's kind of weird that they were great performers, but their writing has just gotten weaker.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think maybe they should just keep it to Jared and Matt, the co-creators, and just let them handle all the storytelling.
Exactly, because everything they did was funny, but as soon as they brought all the new cast members on, it's kind of like, oh, all right, well, my kids used to love it when Studio C came out. They'd watch it all the time. They'd go and watch reruns. Now they watch the reruns of the old cast and don't even want to watch the new stuff.
That's awesome. Well, if they want, they could watch Worst Cop Ever. That's the one you'll see me more clearly. Other than that, most of the other ones you just see like a quick glimpse of me, or you see my boot, or you see my arm, or something like that.
So do you work at for them or with them?
No, I just, when I moved out here from Connecticut, all the kids in my ward in Connecticut were like, oh, you got to go see Studio C. You got to go see Studio C. It's almost impossible to get tickets to Studio C because it's a lottery system. It was so much easier just to be an extra for their sketches. So I just decided to be an extra for their sketches. And
well, I'll have to look up Worst Cop Ever then and see if we can find you.
So you're a Studio C extra?
Yep.
He's an extra Studio C.
That's funny. Hey, you work at Chick-fil-A, right?
Yeah, that's my part-time job, yeah.
Is that a chain that you think of owning? Like a franchise that you would think of owning ever?
If I were going to own a franchise, that would be the franchise I would own. Yeah, there's no doubt.
What do you like about it?
I like the culture that, well, at least with the American Fork, Utah Chick-fil-A, I really like the culture that's been built. It's kind of like the opposite of what we're going to do in this case study or what we see in this case study. It's, more of a team, actually more like of a family. We're always helping each other out. And I don't know. I think it's that culture of they're your brothers and your sisters. You always feel good. You always feel accomplished. Like the managers are always giving you specific feedback of what you did well during your shift. The customers really appreciate it, and you actually feel like you're, helping people have better days because they came into your Chick-fil-A. So,
right.
And the food's pretty good too.
Yeah, the food's really good. Their fries are really good.
By the way, Tuesday, this upcoming Tuesday, the 10th, is Cow Appreciation Day. So if you have kids, tell them to dress up like a cow and they get a free Chick-fil-A sandwich. So,
that's good to know. You said that's on Tuesday?
Yeah, Tuesday, July 10th. Yeah. So.
All right, dress like a cow day.
There you go. Just some black and white spots on your face, maybe a black little nose, whatever. You're good to go.
I don't know. We could go all out and find a cow costume.
There you go.
That would be utterly ridiculous.
We could have one of us go as a cow and the other one goes as a chicken.
There you go.
How about one can go as a bull?
There you go. You do that.
There you go. That would be fun. Some people actually dress up their cars so when they go through the drive-through, it's incredible what some people do, how creative they get. So
That's cool.
yeah.
Hey, Steve, tell the kids to stop banging. It's very loud.
Yeah.
The kids are helping with the dishes, and they like to see how much they can bang while they help with the dishes.
Do you have boys?
One boy and 2 girls.
Oh wow. Okay, I thought the girls would be the quiet, like more.
Yeah, I mean, the girls are much more calm than our son has been, but they're all resistant to being helpful, except for our middle one, who's usually pretty helpful, but she's kind of gotten over that to that helpfulness resistance. So it's fun. We're trying to paint the house this summer, so we started working on the hallway today, and it was interesting to see how our family worked together, to say the least.
Well, that's good though. You're kind of getting them to try to do things as a family and kind of bring them in with that housework, make them feel like they're really a part of it. So that's
Right.
good.
Right, exactly. That they have to help out and they have to be part of it. And we keep having to bring our son back out. No, you have to help. And then he says something that hurts our daughter's feelings, and she runs off crying. And we're just like, just please stop. So anyway, it'll get done eventually. If they take the whole summer to paint the house, then I guess they get to do less fun things.
That's a great way for them to look at it. The quicker they get it done, go out and do something fun.
Yeah. I mean, they're able-bodied kids. They're 17, 15 and a half, and almost 13. There is no reason why they can't do the majority of the work with that, or at least, be a very active participants in that.
Yeah.
So anyway. Okay, Steve. Well, I don't know if we're going to get Michelle or Mark tonight or not. I don't know.
I didn't hear
Well,
anything
it's
about Mark. I
6:31.
know that Michelle wasn't going to come, or at least it didn't seem like she was going to be able to make it.
Oh, okay. I didn't go onto the discussion board to see the links or anything because I didn't feel like it.
The link, or at least as of today by 6 o'clock, I didn't see any link there. So, but yeah, Michelle said that she was traveling. She would try to make it, but she wasn't.
Okay. Well, and Mark may have had something come up with his family or whatever, so
Okay.
That's fine. Let me pull up the stuff that I need. Sweetheart, you're gonna have to turn your phone off.
But that wasn't funny.
Who's texting you?
That was Robert.
Tell him to go away. All right. So go ahead and take control.
I'm pulling up the information right now. Okay. Okay.
Whatever you're doing across the speaker, we can hear every bit of it.
Me?
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything across the speaker, but okay. Maybe it was the microphone.
That's fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. All right. Would anyone like to volunteer to give a prayer? Opening prayer.
I'll give a prayer.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
My pleasure. Heavenly Father, we're so grateful to gather today as classmates and to be able to go over this discussion. We're so grateful for the opportunity to live in such a wonderful country and to be able to celebrate its freedom and all the blessings that we have for being here. Heavenly Father, we're grateful for technology, the technology that helps us learn and to grow and to connect with each other. We pray that as we go over this case study, that thy spirit might be with us and that our minds might be open and that we might be able to share and discuss the things that we've learned and to help each other grow and to teach each other and to learn. We're so grateful for BYU Idaho, and we're so grateful to be able to continue our education. We love thee very much, Heavenly Father, and we say this in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay. Let's see. All right. So to kind of get going here, so basically we'll go over the story and kind of do a bit of a recap so that we understand exactly what's going on. So Barbara Norris has been hired to as a replacement for head of the surgery unit, and her boss has kind of charged her with essentially, I guess you could say, cleaning up the department and making sure that things are starting to run a little more efficiently. Um, it appears as though she's taken over quite a project from the previous manager, and going through the story, it appears as though she also has taken over a very unorganized project. And so she's been tasked with making the department run smoother, as well as trying to deal with the patients with the staff that she's been given and the budget that she's been given as well.
Okay.
So let's see.
Well, and her department it's been going downhill for a while. Their scores have been going downhill, and their customer, oh, what is it? Their patient response surveys. Is that what they call them? Let's see, patient satisfaction scores. They were average, and they've been steadily declining over the past few years. So,
Right.
one of the problems with that happening at a hospital is that people start saying, you know what, that's not a very good hospital. I'm going somewhere else for surgery. And
Right.
so it kind
one of the things that they've also run into is they've got the problems where there's a lot of infighting amongst themselves, a lot of blaming going on, a lot of favoritism being given to certain individuals based on whether it's tenure, whether it's I like this person, we work together better, or this person and I have a friendship outside of the hospital. So, that's one of the big challenges as well that they're running into.
And the newer people seem like they don't feel like they're getting the adequate training or the support. And so they're kind of feeling that, they need a little bit more attention. Plus, I guess there's a hiring freeze as well. And so when
Correct.
they fill in, they have these floaters, these RN floaters, who are not well versed in the protocols and the kind of the daily going on of what's happening in that particular unit. So it's kind of like the opposite of the unit she was in before, which I think was it the trauma unit she was in previously?
Yeah,
Yes.
she was with the trauma unit previously, yes.
And they had more tight units. Some of them hung out after work, and it was just more of a collaboration, more of a teamwork environment. This kind of seems like it's cliques and individuals.
Right. Well, I think that the units themselves serve a different function. I didn't bring this out in my paper, but really, so a trauma unit, they are there to stabilize the patient. They are also there though to support the family, because the family is experiencing trauma as well as the patient. And so I think that because of like their role is more community support as well as patient support, I think that would automatically lean itself towards being a more cooperative team. You know what I mean? Like working together better. Whereas in the general surgical unit, their job is to basically get you in and get you out as quickly as possible. And as soon as you're stable enough to move to a different floor if you need to or whatever else, that's what they do, because they need the bed open for the next surgery patient. So I think that like a surgery unit is much more task oriented than a trauma unit would be. So I think that they're just run completely differently, just like an ER would be run completely differently, right? An ER's job is to stabilize the patient and then move them forward. So I think that's it's not just the exact same type of nursing no matter where you go in a hospital. It's going to be based on the type of stuff being done.
That's good insight because I didn't really think about that. And that really doesn't change my my paper. But it's something that I think I should have kind of at least had in the back of my mind that it's a totally different culture to begin with.
Right. Well, and unless you've been through surgeries or stuff like that, it may not be in your mind. I've had my share. So, it's like you get out of surgery. I remember after I had, when I was 28, I had a hysterectomy. And so I get out of surgery and I'm like telling them, I'm like, oh, my left side hurts. My left side hurts. They're like, well, you just had surgery. Yeah, I know I had surgery, but this hurts, right? Like it shouldn't be hurting like this. And they wouldn't let Steve come back. And that was stressful to me as well. Like they should have let him come back sooner because he could have helped advocate for me. But it turned out that like I had a significant amount of scarring around like my left ovary, and so that was the side that was hurting, and so yeah, it hurt more because they did more stuff over there, and that they could have offered me a hot water bottle or anything, but that's just not what they did. It was just kind of like a get them in, get them out kind of atmosphere. And that particular hospital, the scores were going down for their patient satisfaction because that was the way that they treated people was, okay, let's move them through, you know? So I can kind of see where these ladies are coming from with their stuff, because if to the hospital, it's all about numbers. How many surgeries can you do in a day? How many patients can you see in a day? But they have the wrong idea. It's not about how many surgeries you can do in a day. It's about how well you can care for your patients so that they're going to tell their friends about their experience. Then when their friends need a surgery, they're going to be able to trust your hospital, because hospitals get bad raps. I mean, the VA hospital, everybody says that they have to go to the VA. Everybody's like, oh no, you poor thing, right?
That's so true.
So I think it's about that. What do you need, Evelyn? Yes, that's fine. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I think that based on that it has to be run differently, but it still needs to be run as a team, which that's not how it's happening. And so I think that if they were looking for somebody that was a good team leader, that I think that Barbara Norris is a good fit for that. But if they're looking for somebody that is, has a ton of general surgery experience, then she may not be. So, Steve,
Well,
you dropped your computer?
my computer stopped charging, so I had to fix
Oh,
that.
okay.
One of the things also is she took time away from nursing for a while to raise her kids, and so she stepped away from the nursing program. And then when she got back in, she decided she wanted to go to school, and she wanted to understand nursing administration a little better. And so she has the background experience, but then she also has the educational experience and the administrative experience to get a team going. It sounds like one of the first things she does is she tries to assess what the problems are. What does everybody view as the biggest issue, and then tries to start to tackle that.
And what I like is she has the people that are able to go to that offsite meeting. She gets their feedback.
Exactly.
And I think that is very important, because when you're just trying to solve it yourself, you're not bringing in the people that are in the trenches to help you make the best choices. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
No
okay.
problem. Glad to have you.
Thanks.
Getting their feedback is very important, because that'll help in any buy-ins for when you have to do new procedure or set up the culture differently. You'll have more buy-in because they had a say in it, or at least they felt like they were heard.
Well,
Right.
exactly. And so what she's doing is she's trying to get the opinion of everyone. And then it's interesting how when she asked, does anyone have anything to say about this, and everybody's just quiet. So it's almost like she's trying to pull teeth. But then once one person said something, it kind of opened it up, and everybody started giving their opinion as to, people being pushy, people showing favoritism. There was one nurse that even said that there are other nurses that are talking behind her back. And so once she got a conversation going, it really came out to gain an understanding of exactly just how bad it was.
I think
Right.
that trust started to build pretty quickly. Like in the beginning, they were hesitant. And I think it's because of the old management that really didn't do like the one-on-ones, wasn't very organized, didn't seem to really be working well with the other employees, or at least not bringing them in. And so I think they were a little cautious at first, but when you have that first brave person, that kind of helps open up the floodgate. And they're like, oh, this person said something very candid. They didn't get yelled at or whatever. Maybe I can be brave enough and I can bring up my issues.
Right. I
Right.
mean, I have worked for companies that, they do that. They sit down and they say, okay, what can we do to improve? What changes can we make? And you give them a long list of changes that need to be made, things that they can do to improve, and it's it. It's they might as well just throw it in the trash because nothing ever happens.
Yep.
So he seems to have the attitude of, let's fix this.
Right.
What are your thoughts on her staff and the amount of staff that she has to get the job done? Does it seem like she has enough, or should she try and push for additional staff?
I don't think she does have enough. And I guess maybe if they were allowed to do overtime in the short term, they would have enough. But in the long term, your employees are just gonna be overworked. They're gonna be
Right.
more frustrated and more stressed out. And the floaters don't seem to be a good investment because you always get somebody different. At least that's the impression I got. You got somebody different. They're not used to the protocol, and they didn't always help make things more efficient. So the reason why the floaters are there are to help fill in those gaps. But if they're not going to help the process go smoothly, I almost feel like it's counterproductive.
So I think that she could have it, that the staff she has could be adequate if they did some streamlining of their work duties and kind
Mhm.
of spread things out a little bit differently. For example, if they were to pair some team members up, kind of like we have, our ministering buddies and stuff. Like, so if they have that paired up, um, that, what did I write here? Basically, it would encourage bonding and have like a mentor mentee kind of relationship, that they have that going on. And then if they also had people set to specific tasks, but so if you have a couple people, a mentor and a mentee, that are working together, they could also work together on doing the paperwork. They could say, okay, well, I have to go make my rounds. I'm going to make rounds right now on all of these all of these things. You work on this type of a task, and then they could trade off back and forth more. So right, they could share the workload, because if you have one person that's doing the same type of thing repeatedly for half an hour, it's much more effective than if you have one person that's like there and that back and forth and back and forth. um or even if it's a matter of taking notes and things like that, they could always make their rounds quickly or efficiently together as much as possible, and one person's taking notes of what's going on and the other one is going back and forth. So I think there's ways they could support each other better so that they're more efficient, in what they do have.
I agree with you. I think I said the same thing about mentoring, because there's issues obviously between the floaters and the new people, and the senior nurses aren't really interested in mentoring, but I think it's necessary in that type of a job.
Right. I think
Yeah.
the one senior year nurse that has been there for 30 years, I think that honestly, and when you guys brought up that she'd taken off time to raise her kids, honestly, she may just be angry that somebody is promoted above her that, hasn't worked all the years that she has. And that may be a problem, because a lot of women that have been career women their entire lives get really nasty towards women who have taken time off of work and raised their kids and haven't been career women. They can be really nasty.
Do we know that she even wanted to apply for the job?
We
Be-
don't. We don't.
so
But I mean, still, most people, especially if you've been at a job for 30 years, it's not exactly pleasant to have somebody younger than you or with less experience than you over you, because you see
that's
things
true.
in a way that they don't. So, I mean, if I were her, I would make that person like my right-hand man, like, okay, you see things that I don't see. What can we do? You know, just that.
Yeah, this is
That's actually a really good idea.
an interesting thought as well. A lot of times in hospitals, they have interns that come in, and an interesting way to approach this would be to pair an intern up with a nurse. So that way they have double the people that are doing the work. They can help each other out. And interns, in a lot of cases, it's an unpaid internship. So they're getting someone who can be trained as a nurse and possibly of value to them later on, but it's also easing the load that they currently have, being 5 nurses short.
That's a great point, because eventually they may want to apply for a job and right in that unit, and you'd already have them trained. So double
Exactly.
bonus for you.
Right.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay.
So let's see. What do you think are the 3 main obstacles that is affecting any change that she's trying to make?
Right there, the word change. Change is not easy for most people, and they're used to a management style that just wasn't conducive or that wasn't working well. They probably have the attitude is this is going to be temporary. This new person's going to come in, try to make changes. It's not going to work. It's going to be the same old thing. So I think there's a change issue plus a trust issue.
Right.
Or maybe there's really a trust issue at the core.
Well, and one thing is how willing is her new boss going to be to any changes that she's trying to make? You know, he wants her to come in and get things straightened around, but if she comes in and says, okay, these are the things that we need to change, how likely is he going to be to allow her to make those changes?
That's an interesting question. I would like to think in the positive because he wants the changes to happen quickly, and he needs to realize that that means something needs to be different. It needs to be run differently. So hopefully he's open up to those changes. But that's a great question. I don't know how he would feel.
Right.
Well, I think that on that end, it goes to, a little bit of education of the boss. You have to explain where you're coming from and move in that direction. Like in the 5 Dysfunctions book, when the lady that was leading the thing there, I always forget names. Catherine, there you go. So when Catherine was trying to say, hey, this is why I have to do these offsite meetings, she talks to the guy that's the head of the board, and he's kind of like, well, I'm really nervous about this. This is a bad idea. And so, she talks to him about it. She does a little bit of education and says, this is what I see can happen. Are you willing to stick with this and stick it out? And he had the choice and the chance to think about that.
It's important that she got his buy-in on it as well.
Right.
That way she didn't feel like she was all alone in it.
Right. So it's a matter of making sure that people can comprehend. If you go to the other sheet we were supposed to read this week, it talks about the 4 main motivational things. You have the motivation for acquire, to bond, to comprehend, and to defend. And so you have to make sure that people can really comprehend what you're working with, because once they have that comprehension, then they're going to want to acquire it and bond to it and defend it. So it's kind of like a really important piece there to make sure people understand, I think. I also think that their main things that they are missing is, the bond, the comprehending, and having something to defend. Like they don't have a status. They feel very underappreciated. And so they don't have a team member, team that they feel like they're defending. They're basically every man for himself.
Yes.
So it's kind of like the Titanic on their floor, it seems like, tossing everybody in and out of boats, and good luck.
So one of the other issues is also the lack of transparency they kind of talked about in that paper too. Seemed to be an issue that the annual review process isn't clear to anybody.
Right.
So I think that's creating an issue for her to deal with as well. And I also think it doesn't sound like there's a mission statement or about principles and values that they all buy into on that floor. And I think they need to go back and start at square one and then start building their team from there, because right now it doesn't sound like there's no mentoring, there's negativity. I mean, the whole team is a mess. So
Yeah,
I think they need to go back and get some buy-in as a group and then rebuild themselves.
yeah, I agree.
one of the things that I talked about in my paper was the lack of budget that they had. And so they have this budget that they're given, but you also have nurses that are saying, hey, I'm not getting any type of recognition for the things that I'm doing. I'm not getting any validation. I feel like the raises are all being given based off of everybody gets the same raise. And one of the things that I pointed out is really just a simple reward system of, let's do an employee of the month. Let's take a parking spot. You can park up front for the month. You get your name and your picture up on the wall, on the employee of the month wall for everyone to see. Those are things that cost nothing. She stays within budget. The morale of the nurses comes up, and as the morale comes up, productivity is going to come up, and it's going to be somewhat of a competition amongst them to see who can get employee of the month, because they all want that parking spot.
Even a simple high five program that we do at our work, and I think you might have mentioned this a few pieces back, that works fantastic. It costs nothing but just like a little time to set it up, and
Exactly.
your peers are the ones that are showing you that appreciation, and that's helped out with our culture. Even though we have offices in all these different states and in different countries, it's a way for us to bond and actually get to know each other a little bit better. So, and it also shows how much, at least for us, it showed how much we depend on other people in different departments. Obviously, that wouldn't apply to this case, but just knowing how your peers appreciate the work that you do, and I mean, that just kind of makes you want to go to work. You're more excited to go to work.
Right. Well, I think that it builds to that drive to acquire. It kind of gives them something they're acquiring, and I mean, they could even let the patients in on it. Let the patients give a little feedback of, hey, this is what you did good, or whatever. To them, something that's just very informal and easy on the patients to do. So I don't know. There's got to be something they could come up with, but just something that's very easy to be like, hey, I got, wow, my patient gave me this sticker or whatever, that, I don't know, just something basic, but,
any kind of recognition.
Yeah, exactly. Any kind of recognition, and as a parent, that's what you don't get, right, is recognition, and that's what makes you crazy. So,
Until your kids grow up and then they say, then they show appreciation. Like, I never knew you had to go through all this.
Yeah. Eventually it'll come, but not soon enough.
Exactly.
I was reading the book, 22 Vital Traits of Highly Effective CEOs. And I was really surprised that one of the recognitions, they said that it's good for like a manager to give. And they said something just as simple as putting your hand on somebody's shoulder and giving them a compliment in front of their peers. Like, not just like, oh, you're doing a good job, but something specific. Saying, oh, I really like how you handled this. Something that simple that takes 30 seconds to do actually goes a long way. And I was really surprised that it could be something that simple that could have a good impact, or that much of an impact.
Right. I don't know.
So one of the things that it talks about in here is, we had, we talked about, I guess, how human nature, it shapes the choices that we make, and we all have a certain drive, as we talked about. So one of the things is we have a drive to comprehend. So I think part of what they're struggling with is trying to comprehend what their purpose is and what their job is, and understanding exactly what they're expected to do. Because one of the things that it seemed like they all had a different idea of what expectations were for each one of them. And one of the things I could see that would benefit them is having a specific job description for each job that each person is doing. In the book, let's see, I think it was the E-Myth, it talked about a hotel that the guy goes to a hotel and he just sees the system that's put in place, how the system there is basically the entire system for running the hotel is in a binder, and it's written so well that you could hand the binder to someone and they could completely run the hotel exactly the way that it's supposed to be done by going by essentially a checklist. And I think if that was something that Barbara were to be able to set up, a checklist of this is what needs to be done, this is the order that needs to be done in, and focusing on the fact that it needs to be done in a certain order, then she would find that all of the nurses are on the same page. Everything is getting done. It's getting done correctly, and there isn't going to be this feeling of this person's doing more than me, this person's doing less than me. I think maybe it would take some of the favoritism away.
That could. I think that doing things in an order is a big deal. When I was in high school and I worked fast food, they would hire these girls. And I worked for an Asian couple, and they only hired girls. If boys came and applied, they actually threw their applications in the trash. They didn't even put them in the file. They just went straight to the trash. They only hired girls. And some of these girls, I don't know how they got out of bed in the morning without killing themselves. They were just so dense. And I'm like, oh my goodness. But I was trying to train them on like having a system, at night you're supposed to clean things up and do stuff. And they were just scattered. It was like, instead of like wiping down all of the counters one direction, and then like I would go through and you have the counters you're supposed to wipe. So I'd start at one end, I'd wipe the tops of them all the way one side to the other. Then I'd go and wipe the fronts all the way one side to the other. Then you turn around and you do the other part and you're straightening up as you go. And by that time, you're 5 minutes and it's all the way done. And these girls would take 25 minutes to do that. And it would just drive me out of my mind. But because there was no written system of this is how you do it, it was just me saying you should do it this way. There was no credibility, even though I worked there, a year and a half when I'm trying to help these girls learn. So, it's like the credibility has to be there, and then there has to be the managers that are the ones doing it. And they have to be more concerned. They have to have a vision, I think, of what that little bit of extra work is going to do for their bottom line. It's going to take some extra work at first, and it might take a little bit of extra time at first. So you might at first say, oh, this is not helping my bottom line. But then in the long run, you're going to say, wow, that really made things more efficient. People are happier, customers are getting served more quickly. And I think that was what could happen on the GSU if they, really learned how to streamline things. One of the suggestions that I had made is that they basically make each person a liaison or a couple of people kind of over certain tasks or certain things that need to be done, and that giving them ownership of something. And that if they have that ownership, that's something we read about in 7 Habits, that if they have ownership, that they would be able to feel that responsibility and more pride in what they're doing. And it's resume building, right? Like if they're over all of the, ensuring that all of the supplies are stocked in an area, that's a big deal because they're making sure that the orders happen for it and the stocks happen for it. And, so I think that if they can streamline those things and then delegate, that's the biggest thing. That's my goal lately. Streamline and delegate. That's my thing at the house too. Delegate.
Michelle, if you were to come up with one specific item or one specific thing that Barbara could do to improve the department, what would that be?
So after I did the mission statement, we're all on the same page with the same principles and values, because I think that's key, because I think you've got to get the buy-in and they all need to participate. The other thing, kind of along the same lines as Chantel, was I think they should redo the job descriptions, and I think mentoring needs to be part of that, and I think it needs to lay out everybody's duties. And I think then, kind of like you guys said, it will streamline the process. Everyone will understand what their job is, and also their annual performance. They need to know what it is that they're evaluated on annually. I mean, without knowing what you're evaluated on, how can you improve? I mean, an evaluation is your opportunity to give feedback into your job and to receive feedback. It's not. So I guess I would go with because everything else has been said, I'd go with redesigning the job descriptions at this point, because I think that will help them.
I agree. And if you redesign the job description, then that's going to help them know what their performance is based on.
Yep.
And I know we talked about kind of a customer satisfaction type thing. I think also putting in some kind of a customer satisfaction survey where they can find out how the customers felt like the nurses did, even if it needs to be on an individual basis. That's something that her as the director, she could take outside of and make a follow-up phone call to the patient. How was your experience? You can talk to the patient's family. How was your experience? That way she gets the feedback from the patients directly on things that might need to be improved on. But she can also find out, hey, the nurses are doing great in this particular aspect. This one nurse did this fantastic job. She can then take an opportunity to recognize that nurse as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree.
One of the nurses mentioned how they felt like they just didn't have enough time to care for the patients as much as they should. So one of my first things would be doing something about the staffing issue. And I'm not sure exactly what they can do beside the mentoring program, where maybe the newer nurses can kind of be more up to snuff on what to do, and maybe have multiple authority in multiple areas of where they can help out. But the staffing issue seems to be the biggest part because they don't feel like they're able to give the care that they're supposed to give.
Right.
So I think that part of that as well is going back to the reevaluating of things and evaluating what the nurses are doing and what they may be able to take over to the CNAs or whatever they're calling them, but the certified nurse assistants. They could see what they could take, and from there they may be able to even take some of the responsibilities of the nursing assistants and see if they can maybe get another orderly that just does bed changes. If the nurses assistants are spending a lot of time on bed changes, whereas they could be doing blood pressure and blood draws, or whatever other notes need to be done, then
Even a floater could do that, like, because that's not going to change between different units. So, and I love that idea, where if you're noticing that there's something that's taking a little bit more time away from what their more primary duties are, to have somebody like a floater focus on those very general tasks.
Yep.
Maybe administrative paperwork, maybe the bed changes, something like that, where the people that are there more full time would focus on their actual job.
The one challenge you're going to get if you put too many bed changes on a floater nurse, none of the nurses are going to want to be the floater for that floor.
They're not going to want to do it.
Changing beds, they do. They're like, I didn't get into this to change beds. I got into this to help people, and that's what the CNAs are for. Go ahead.
I kind of liked how Barb had it said in the thing about taking the big decisions to the nurses. So like if they need secretarial help or something like that, then get them all in and see where you're going to get the funding for that and where you're going to reallocate your resources. Then you're going to have better buy-in from the staff and you'll have more success.
Yeah.
I think that's key is making sure that the nurses feel like the big decisions are decisions that they have a say in.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, this gives me food for thought for our kids. I can tell you that. They're going to love this.
There you go.
I'm writing this down. I'm thinking, self-evaluations, like they could do good with self-evaluations and be able to know, but it's true. Like if they don't know what's being expected of them, like it's summertime, I'm like, you're not going to sit on your butt and read all day. Sorry. You're not going to go play video games and read all day. There's tasks that need to be getting done. But if they don't know what's being expected, then how can I expect them to do it effectively,
Yep, exactly.
So it's a matter of laying out, okay, this is what we expect. This is, where we can go with it. And that takes me out of the position of being a taskmaster and being the bad guy and puts it into, okay, well, this is the plan we've discussed. This is what we're doing. And I find that inevitably when we have a written plan of what's happening, things go better, just like in any other organization, that it just goes better. So that's the way I'm going to take it for now. Because this is the organization I've been running for the last 18
There
and a
you
half
go.
years.
Good luck with that.
Thanks. I'll let you know how it goes. Well, I definitely have a
try
varied
something
staff.
new.
I mean, I've got somebody that's on the autism spectrum. I've got somebody that's highly motivated by just, everything. And then I've got somebody else who's only motivated by praise and whatnot. So, we have a very varied staff here.
Yeah. I was at my daughter's the other day, and this is similar because she had a chart up with each of the kids' name, and everything they had to do every day was listed under them, and they marked them off every day. And
Yep.
once they did that, then they could have an hour on their iPad or watching TV or whatever. But until those things were done, they didn't get their electronics. So
Yeah,
I always feel
exactly.
like that's our accountability project for this class. Like we have this checklist of what we have to
Yes.
do daily, weekly, monthly.
Yes.
All right, maybe I should be watching TV until this gets done.
exactly. You get this done first.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. But the whole point of it is to start implementing it now. I mean, like if you wait until you have some other position or whatever else to implement these things, you're going to have forgotten them. And so as much as you can implement anything you learn now, the better that it's going to be. And I believe that Heavenly Father has a purpose for showing us these things at the right time in our lives. So each of us has something in our life right now that can apply to this and that we can implement this in. And we just have to decide on our own, okay, where in my life do I need to implement these organizational skills that I'm learning? And, when we do, then good things will happen.
Well, and I think a lot of the case studies that we do are for that reason as well, as to help us see areas in our own lives that these case studies could apply to. While we don't work in a medical facility, there are things in here that certainly could apply to our own families or any other possible social situations or in our own jobs that could be beneficial to us. Like a reward system for our children. Excuse me. So looking down the list here, there really isn't a whole lot more to talk about. It looks like we've covered pretty much everything. I think that we've got a good understanding of what needs to be changed and what steps she should take going forward. Because really at this point, she needs to make a report to her boss and lay out her next steps and her strategy for how to get things worked out.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things I saw that was saying something about creating an action plan. So one of the things that I did was I created for my thing, just kind of the layout where the people are, the people's needs. And I think that if she were to make a chart like this, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, if she were to make a chart like this and say, okay, this is where this person's at, this is what they've said, and starts to put their things in a place, then she's going to be able to really see clearly, okay, this, what to do for each person and how to help. And then I also put down here, the problems that she had addressed, I put them under the areas that they would fall in. And some of these fall in multiple areas, and I probably could have thought about it a little longer and seen if there was more areas, more that would fall in multiple areas. But, I think that analyzing is a big key, and I think that she's been working at doing that in the first couple months. But I think that continuing to have a consistent way to understand and interpret the data that she's getting back from her meetings with her employees and her observations, then, if you have a consistent way to interpret data, then it's going to be much easier to make a plan as opposed to if you're just sporadically jotting things down. So
Looks good.
Yeah, very well.
Thanks. I just think that, the more organized we are, the better it is to be able to understand what the needs are. So this is another thing I get to do for my kids. Yay.
Yeah, I was going to say that'd be perfect for the kids right there.
It will
for
be,
you to draw that up and.
Yeah.
by the time that we get it correct, they'll be ready to leave and have their own kids.
There you go.
They'll be well prepared. They'll be well prepared.
That's right. We'll at least have a program we can turn over to them and say, "Here you go now."
That's right. How not to screw your kids up, right?
Learn from my lessons. Learn from my mistakes, right? Do better.
That's right. One time my mom was telling me that I shouldn't do something with my kids, and I was just like, really, Mom? Are you know, because she was an interesting person. So I just looked at her, I was like, well, you had your turn to screw your kids up, now it's mine. She was like, oh, Chantel. I'm like, oh, that's how it goes. But
True.
anyway, you know, everybody has to learn, and everybody's kids have different needs and different stages, right? Different stages with your kids are completely different. When they were young, we had a very basic rules chart, you know, use your nice words, keep your hands and feet to yourself, you know, take a little vacation if you need to calm down, you know, go sit it out or whatever. And then probably like 6 years ago, that wasn't working. So I made a super detailed rules chart. And every single time they got in trouble, they had to read the whole thing. So they have the rules chart memorized. And today we're painting, and Steve pulls it off the wall. They're like, yay, the rules chart's coming down. And so I'm like, well, it's going to be, if it stays down, it's going to be replaced with something more effective, you know? So maybe this is just the thing. I think they always dread it when I come up with something new, because they know it means that they have to do something more, but it helps them grow. So
That's
anyway.
right. Those are raising kids.
Yeah, I think that's the way it goes with everybody, and that's the way it's going to go with, you know, the GSU, is that they're going to dread it, and they're going to be like, oh no, changes. But you know, it helps you grow, and it helps you improve and be a better person.
And that's how she should sell it. She should let them know, like, here's the outcome that we're looking for. And this, you know, I'm not doing this just to be a taskmaster. I'm doing this because we all agree that this is the vision of the GSU. So they'll have the buy-in, they'll be able to see vision, and hopefully it'll go somewhat smoothly.
Right.
Yeah. They just need buy-in. She needs to work with her staff. They need to become a team.
Yeah.
I think she's off to a good start, though. I think that offsite meeting, even though she wasn't able to have all her employees there, hopefully she was able to do an offsite with the other ones as well. But she's showing that she's reaching out to them, and she is going to have them as, you know, as consultants before she makes a big decision that's going to affect
Right.
them. So they'll feel more as a team, I guess.
Well, she was interested in listening to them, which I think was the first step. That's what they needed, was someone to listen and hear what they were saying. So
exactly, but now I think her actions are going to show if she was actually listening.
right.
So, you know, I mean, if she says, "Okay, yep, I heard them, but I think we should be doing this,"
Right.
they're not going to trust her very much, or they're not going to open up to her as much. But if they're like, "Oh, wow, she's taking into consideration what we said," you know, I think that's going to help build that trust that they need.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think at this point, really, the ball's in her court. So if she wants things to improve, then she needs to take the feedback that they've given and actually make some changes. Otherwise, she's going to be looked at just like the previous manager, just someone that's going to just take all your information and toss it aside.
Yep. And everything will stay the same, and there'll still be issues and bad culture and no motivation. And
I just hope her boss is, you know, able to, you know, be a positive, have a positive impact on this. My worry is he wants the unit to change. He wants to change quickly, but he might not feel comfortable about some of those changes. So I kind of hope that he's going to be a support and be like, you know what, I trust you. I'm going to take your word for it. I'm going to let you do what you need to do to straighten it out. So
Right.
I think
Well,
that's going to be a big one.
you know, you can always relate it to him, like if you want to lose weight. You might want to lose weight really quickly, but it's going to take time to do it, and it's going to take some changes that are uncomfortable, and you might not like eating salad and drinking water or, you know, having to walk more, but those are the things you have to do to make the results, you know.
What, new chocolate cake? Come on.
Well, if you put enough protein powder in the chocolate cake, then it's a protein
geez.
chocolate cake. And I actually have done that. I've made myself chocolate brownies with protein powder in it, because then you got like the nutritional value, but you have what you're craving as well. So
And how was that?
they weren't too bad, but granted, I'm used to
Okay.
eating things that taste a little weird because I have to be gluten-free and all these other things I'm
Okay.
allergic to. So I don't know how other people would have liked them, but you know, it was chocolate and sugar. Can't
There you
beat that.
go.
I had a question for you guys, and I wanted to think what it was. So how would I was just thinking again kind of how this would apply in a family, but even in that situation, if you've got a group and they've got these different skills, and so you start assigning them things based on their skill set, how would you address that maybe one of their skill sets isn't being developed enough to if you say, okay, well, this is what you're good at, so we're going to assign you to that thing that you're good at, would you also assign them to something that they need to develop still so that they could develop it?
Honestly, what I would do, I want to get their input on what they're looking for as far as their career growth. And so like somebody might be like really good at like accounting stuff, but maybe they want to get more into the marketing or more into sales or something. And I would try to give them a responsibility that they're good at, but also if they do well, to also give them like an extra project of where they want to grow. So I would really get their input on what their career goal is and then assign them another activity that's based on their career growth.
Okay, that's a good idea. So that way you have like kind of both sides being met, right? Like
Exactly.
you feel
You're
good
taking,
about something that you're doing because you're doing something you're good at, and then you're growing something else.
yeah. So if so, you're doing something that's their main job is what their main competency is. So if they're really good at doing A, okay, that's your main job. But I also see you want to do this with your career. So if you keep on doing well here, I'll give you this extra responsibility over on the side.
Okay.
Interesting.
Sorry, I'm writing that down. My kids are gonna love you guys.
Well, it's
I'm
kind of
going
like
all
that.
the way to Utah. They can't get to me.
Yeah. What was that, Michelle?
I was going to say it's kind of like the annual evaluation. When you go through it, they'll say, "Well, is there something you want to work on, or is there some other, other roles that you want to take on?" And I think that's a good time to get that kind of feedback from
Right.
people, and then you kind of know, okay, well, then let's try this, and give you this added, I guess, role or leadership type of thing, so you can grow.
Right.
I just want to kind of give an example of that. I was working for Aetna Insurance in Connecticut, and I was hired for one of their customer service jobs. So it was, you're on the phone all day helping customers out. And the customers were doctors, so I got to work with doctors a lot. My boss sat me down, and just like you just mentioned, Michelle, she asked, well, what's your career goal? And I'm like, well, I like public speaking. I would love to practice, get some practice public speaking. Well, as long as I was doing well in my core job, she gave me an opportunity to work in the rewards and recognition area for our particular department. And that meant I got an opportunity to get in front of an auditorium full of employees and talk about our results, and to also develop a program and host that program. So as long as I was doing my job well, she would try to help me get more experience where I wanted my career to go in.
That's great.
It's a great idea. It's a great idea. Why did you leave Connecticut?
I wanted to come. Well, this is where I kind of failed. My whole reason for coming out to Utah is to finish my bachelor's degree. So the whole goal was I finished the pathway program, and I got into BYU Idaho. So I was going to come out here for 2 years. So I saved up enough money, came out here for 2 years. I wasn't going to work. I was just going to focus on school, graduate, and then go back to Connecticut. And I just I don't know. I was like it turned out to be just a 2-year vacation where I didn't really do too much with school. I took a class here or there, didn't take it too serious, got involved with Studio C, did a lot of running, and I didn't do anything bad. I mean, I was being productive, but I just didn't do what I came out here to do. So I really came out here for school, and I don't know, I just got kind of caught up in things going around. And so here I am on the 50-year program to get my bachelor's degree.
Well, I think we're all kind of in that boat at this point.
I
right?
agree with that. Yep.
I mean, it's like we started Pathway in 2013, and we took a year off after we finished that. But I mean, we still got 2 more years to go. So it just, you just are the limit, just keep plugging away.
I'm in that same boat. Started 2013 as well. So
Yep. So
91 credits after this one.
how many?
91 after this class.
91. Wow. Yeah. And you just
Getting
keep
there.
going. Yeah. I was fortunate to have some already.
We actually all graduated around the same time because I started BYU Idaho September 2014. So that means I graduated from Pathways in 2013.
2013. So we were all the same year for Pathways then.
That's crazy.
That's pretty
Is.
cool.
It is. It also shows that you can keep plugging away. At this point, I'm not doing my degree for anybody else or anything else. I'm doing it for me. Like, I just want to finish it for me. I don't care if it applies to anything else I do. I want to do it for me.
Me too.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Same boat.
Yep. It comes a point where you're like, I'm doing it for me.
Yep.
So,
That's the greatest motivation too. When you're doing it for yourself, that's what's going to get you to do the homework when you just don't feel like you have the time or the energy.
right. Exactly. And there's plenty of that, like today. So, but it's good. It's a really good program. We're really blessed to be part of this program. Like, it just, it's such a blessing. The other things I see, they don't focus on the whole person. Business degrees are usually about just the facts of it and not about the whole person. And that's one thing that I think is awesome with BYU Idaho is that it's all about the whole person. Like, your spirituality, how you're applying this in your family and all these other things. So
We're very lucky.
we really are. We really are. So anyway, Steve, do we have anything else we have to talk about with it?
No, that's pretty much about it. So unless you guys have anything else that you want to bring up, then we'll go ahead and stop the broadcast. And
Sorry I
on
was
for
late.
next week? Yeah. Who's on for next week? Is that you, Garrett?
I think it's me.
Okay. Oh, next week. Wait, we're not supposed to meet in week 12.
But week 13. So I'll be the one for week 13.
Week 13.
So are we on at 7:30 again or 6:30 on that Thursday? Okay.
Yeah, 7:30 Mountain Time, if that still works for everybody.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That should work.
So we won't see each other this upcoming week. Do I have that right? Yeah, it's Thursday. So this next week is week 12. So we don't have class, so to speak, or at least our group during week 12. But so week 13 and then week 14.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
We're almost
Thank
done.
you.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
bye.
Bye.